The Florida Gators did it again, and I love it so much. They added another commit to the defensive side. CJ Hester, you are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. Happy 4th of July. Be safe. Be careful. Don't be dumb about things. Just want to throw that out there. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and with Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And yesterday, the Florida Gators did what they do best, which is add another recruit to the 2026 recruiting class, another defensive player to the 2026 recruiting class, and another CJ to the 2026 recruiting class, as CJ Hester, cornerback, has committed to the Florida Gators. A 4-star everywhere, except he's a 3-star on 24/7. And we spoke about this yesterday because, of course, we went live when he committed. And hopefully we will have another show for you today. Just want to throw that out there. Hopefully. But CJ Hester committed, 6'1", 175-pound corner. On 3, he is a 4-star, 121st player in the country. I almost said in the state of Florida. On 3, he is a 4-star, 121st ranked player in the country, 16th corner, and 14th player in the state of Florida. Nobody is higher on CJ Hester than on 3 is. On 24/7, 3 stars, unranked nationally, 40th player in the country, and 67th player in the state of Florida. But again, if I'm not mistaken, these recruiting services are supposed to be updating their rankings this month. At least 24/7 is supposed to. And so, because I feel like we've talked about a lot of players in this class where we go, oh yeah, they're a 4-star everywhere except for 24/7. They're a 5-star except for 24/7. And that's not to dunk on 24/7. It's just rankings aren't updated. Whatever. Like if we get to December and they're still off on rankings, then sure, I'll care and I'll cause a big stink about it and all that. But like, we're in July. It's tough for me to really harp on a ranking when I know it's not their final rankings. That's just tough for me. Or close to their final rankings. I just know they were tough there. On 24/7, he is the 40th corner in the country, 67th player in the state of Florida. On ESPN, he is a 4-star, 252nd ranked player nationally, 19th corner in the country, 38th player in the state of Florida. And on Rivals, he is unranked nationally, but is still a 4-star, 23rd corner in the country, and 47th player in the state of Florida. Look, he's a damn good player. We spoke about CJ Hester a few times this week. And on the edit to commit that Hayes Fawcett put out, he chose Florida over Iowa, Georgia, and Syracuse. And we spoke about the recruitment with mostly Florida, Iowa, and Georgia. And the Syracuse thing was the only one that was, different from what we've been talking about. But it's also not surprising. I also feel like maybe he just gave him a Final Four or gave Hayes a Final Four there. But when we spoke about CJ Hester, this is someone that I view him as someone that means business about football. Because when I look at CJ Hester and when we look at this recruitment process and his final schools, one thing that we heard was that a lot that matters to him is playing time and development, right? And we spoke about Florida, right? Florida, look, there's genuinely not proven development at corner from Florida's coaching staff right now because it's relatively a new coaching staff there. So there's not much proven there. But at the same time, even without a proven, I guess we'll say without proof of concept there, this coaching staff, whoever is all in that meeting with him, could say, hey, this is how we want to develop you. This is our plan. This is where we think you need work. We've heard about the offensive line staff doing that a ton. We're going to hear about more coaches doing that with players, right? Because when we're talking about development, When you're talking about blue chip players, oftentimes they've got NFL aspirations, right? It's not often you hear a 4-star recruit go to any Power 4 university and go, yeah, like I just want to be an engineer after football, though. Like I'm just play, get some money, free education, all that. You don't hear that often. 3 stars, walk-ons, you don't hear that often. It's often guys that want an opportunity. And so even if you haven't proven, hey, this is how we can get you there, or this is who we've gotten there before, this is how we've done it, you could still sit there with a kid and say, hey, this is where we think you need to work on, or this is what we think you need to work on. We'll watch the film. We'll tell you what we think your areas of improvement are, what your weaknesses are, what we think you're already good at, but how we can make you better at it. And this is our plan to develop you in that way and get you ready for that. You could do all that and still convince someone, all right, might be the plan, might be the move for me. You can do that. It's really not that hard to go, hey, this is how you can improve. So while Florida might not have the proven development at cornerback right now with this current staff, you can still sell someone on development. Playing time, I've spoken about it before. Like you look at this Florida Gators, like this cornerback room right now, and you're going to have going into this year, Devin Moore on one side, or we'll say this because I know that I'm going to say, oh, this guy on one side, this guy on the other side, and then I'm going to deal with the comments about, well, actually, this person should be starting. So I don't care about that. We'll say that the 3 guys that play the most are probably going to be Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson, and Cormani McLean, right? We could say that. I think we could all agree on that part. So we'll say those are the 3 guys that are probably going to play the most. You got Ben Hanks, the third's a true freshman. Onis Konanbani's a true freshman. Javari Flowers, I think, is going to be in the nickel, so not as relevant to this conversation. You got Jamrock Grimsley. You got Teddy Foster. You've got Michael Caraway in there right now. But you've got all that going on. And Devin Moore, a senior, so he's going to be gone after this year. Dijon Johnson, draft eligible. Not saying that they're going, but again, like you're not necessarily adding to your class for guys that are going to the NFL draft. You're adding for guys that are eligible to go to the NFL draft because if they end up going, you don't want to be screwed, right? So Dijon Johnson, draft eligible after this year. Cormani McLean, draft eligible after this year. Michael Caraway, a redshirt senior, he's going to be gone. He's gone. I believe that there's no way that he or Devin Moore can get eligibility unless they play less than 4 games this year. They would have to redshirt in some way, right? So they're all gone, or those 2 are gone. Cormani and Dijon are both draft eligible. Okay. Then you go into 2026, and Jamrock Grimsley, Jameer Grimsley, and Teddy Foster are both going to be draft eligible then. And let's say that you're the type where you go, Teddy Foster, I'm not super impressed by him, right? Because he was a low-ranked recruit, and that's really all you could base it off if he barely played. But let's say you're like, oh, I'm not impressed with him. Okay. Then you know what that means? That means in 2026, you're going to have Ben Hanks III, Onis Konanbani, Javari Flowers if he's going to go outside, but he's, again, expected to be a nickel, Jamrock Grimsley, Teddy Foster, all those guys. Who there is guaranteed to be good? Who there is guaranteed to be successful? You can bank that, yeah, 1, 2, maybe even 3 of them are going to be good, but who's guaranteed for it? Because the answer is none of them. And that's where the playing time conversation comes in. Yes, Florida's corner room is very young right now. You got a few guys at the top that are going to be gone, but for the most part, that room is very young. Doesn't mean they're going to be good. It means that they've got a high ceiling. But when we go into camp 2026, that conversation is going to be, hey, you might have the leg up, but we're not guaranteeing a starting spot to anybody. So playing time, the path to playing time is there. That's why it's an easy sell for CJ Hester to say development and playing time. Oh, on top of that, by the way, he gets to stay in the state of Florida. He gets to stay home, not go to Iowa, not go to Georgia. He gets to stay home, not go to Syracuse. Now, I'm from New York. That's never been a secret, but I don't want to go to Syracuse. It's a 3-4 hour drive from me, and I don't want to go. That place sucks. I hope Fran gets out of there as soon as possible because Syracuse blows. I just want to throw that out there. So you get to stay home, get the development, potentially get the playing time, especially with a coaching staff that has proven they're willing and able to play true freshmen anywhere on the field. Hell, a true freshman just started at quarterback for them for half the year. Yeah, you can go to that staff and stay home and do all that. That's a damn good selling point. Florida won the recruitment there. It's as simple as that. We are about to talk about this 2026 recruiting class, and we spoke about this a bit yesterday, but I love the way that this 2026 class is coming together. And so we'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. We've all been there, right? Logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale. I haven't done that in a very long. The last time I did that for a show that I wanted to go to was Drake and Future in 2016. That was it. What a time to be alive tour. That was the last time I did that. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. It happens, right? Live music should be about making memories, right? Not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Okay. Game Time is freaking awesome for concerts. Like I've been very open about this. Last year, I saw Anita perform live. I saw Shabuzi perform live. I saw Sueco perform live. I saw that Mexican OT perform live. That might have been it. There might have been one more. I forget. This year, haven't gone to any concerts yet, but I went to see John Mulaney, Jon Stewart, and Pete Davidson last week. It's beautiful. Like Game Time's the best. Take the guesswork out of buying concert or show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free, both in the podcast and on YouTube. And we spoke about this a bit yesterday during the live show after CJ Hester committed to the Florida Gators, where we spoke about how the class has been coming together lately, right? And my thoughts on, I want to say like my philosophy on building a class, but I'm not out there doing it. So it's not really mine. But my thought on the right way that I think classes should be filled out is that you're basically putting together a roster, right? You're basically fielding starting O, starting B. Like that's kind of what you want in every class. Every class you want a quarterback. Every class you want a couple of running backs. Every class you want between 2 and 4 receivers. So we'll just say on average 3. Every class you want 2 tight ends. Sometimes 3, but mostly 2. Every class you want between 4 and 7 O-line, I'll say. Right? And that's what you get on offense. That alone gets you a pretty good spot, right? That gets you a pretty good starting point. And the way that Florida's offense went was Will Griffin was your first commit last year. And for a long while, he was your lone commit for this 2026 class, right? So you got your quarterback. You've had your quarterback. Running back, you've got Carsyn Baker in there. Receiver, Marquez Daniel. And I guess we'll put him in the middle of the depth chart there. Like let's say it's running back, receiver. We'll put him in the middle. Justin Williams, who was on the show last week. And it was awesome. He's going to play running back. He's going to play receiver. He's going to move all over the place, right? That's the same selling point for Davian Gross, by the way. So that's Florida's move right now, is that they're getting guys that are running receivers, which I love. I just want to say that I love that versatility. I think offensive weapon is actually a compliment. I know that there's people that look at it as a negative. I disagree. I think gadgets are very valuable. And I think gadgets make teams great. So we'll say that one also good. So you've got your quarterback. You've got 1.5 running backs. You've got 1.5 receivers. We can assume that you're going to want another running back, another receiver. If you take Davian Gross, then maybe we just count him as another half for each. And then it's like, all right, 2 running backs, 2 receivers. That's essentially what we got. You've got 1 tight end committed right now in Kekua Omua from IMG. You've got 5 offensive linemen committed. You've got Tyler Chukiam and Chancellor Campbell are guys that I think are going to be tackles long-term. Javari Lucas is a tackle right now, but I think he's going to be an interior offensive lineman long-term. I've said before, I view Javari Lucas as someone that could be kind of a Bryce Lovett type. I don't think he's as talented as Bryce Lovett. Not to say he can't become as talented as Bryce Lovett, because I also wasn't a huge fan of Bryce Lovett's film coming out of high school. I didn't think it was bad. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. So I'm not going to pretend that I was. But as like a Bryce Lovett type, it's like, yeah, you're going to practice at right tackle. You're going to practice at right guard, and you're going to practice at left guard. And wherever we need you, you're going to be available to slot in. I know everybody wants to talk about these recruits and go, oh, like this guy's going to be a starter. This guy's going to be a starter. And that's not the case, right? There's going to be times where guys aren't starters. And they can make the decision at that point whenever they feel right. Maybe it's entering your third year. Whenever you feel right to go, I'm not a starter here. I'm not going to become a starter here. I either need to portal out for a chance to start, or accept getting my education, maybe join a coaching staff after, maybe join this coaching staff after, maybe figure out whatever the hell I'm going to figure it out. But not everybody's going to, and I'm not saying this about Javari Lucas specifically. I'm just saying in general, like not everybody's going to be a starter in every class. And I feel like whenever we talk about recruits and commits, everybody wants to go, oh, 2 years, he's going to be a starter. No, he's not. That's not how it works. That's just not how recruiting works. But I think that, you add Janari Carr on the interior and Desmond Green on the interior, and it's like, all right, well, we've got, we'll say 2.5 interior offensive linemen, 2.5 offensive tackles. There's a couple guys that I think are going to be viewed as plus ones. I think Hezzy Kent's going to be one of them, which apparently someone told me that that's how it's pronounced. So I apologize for saying he's Kent. But Hezzy Kent is going to be an offensive lineman. I forgot who reported that. Someone reported that he's long-term going to be playing offensive line. I know that a lot of people have spoken about that he should, but someone, I forgot who, reported, and it might not even been a Florida person, but someone reported that Hezzy Kent is going to be playing offensive lineman long-term. And they phrased it like it wasn't necessarily their suggestion. They phrased it like it was, hey, this is what's happening. And so you add that plus one. There's a few other guys that just on the offense are going to be plus ones, right? Where it's like, hey, well, we've got guys here, but we take you, right? Like, let's say Florida fills out their receiver class. If Sedarian Morgan, who just committed to Alabama on Thursday, if Sedarian Morgan turns around and he goes, hey, actually, I want to be a Gator, then they're going to say no to him. Come on now. Come on. Might push someone out, which I don't think would be the case anyway, because I do think he'd be a true plus one. But the point is, there's plus ones that can change things. So Florida's offense right now, really another running back, another receiver, another tight end. And then it's just plus ones. Again, we talked about this Florida Gators offense, or we talked about this Florida Gators recruiting class a while back when Florida had one, maybe 3 commits at the time. I don't think it was after the Janari Carr, JJ Perez weekend. But when we spoke about that with Brian Smith, he was like, oh, like at what point do we push the panic button? In early mid-July, is Florida going to have 12 commits? And he wasn't saying it insultingly. He was like asking. And I said, I think it's going to be higher. I think it's going to be like 16 to 18. Right now, it's July 4th, and Florida's at 16. They're probably going to be at 15 at one point today, and then back to 16, or think maybe they go to 17 and then back to 16. But I think that they'll be at 16 at the end of the day as well, which we'll talk about. But so I think that, 16 to 18 is the range. Like this is now Florida's recruiting class is back on track. And that's where they should be. Again, add another running back, add another receiver, add another tight end, and then everything else on offense is extra credit. That's it. That's all it is. Offense, looking good. Defense, not as much, but getting better. Just not there yet. We'll talk about that in just a second with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we are talking about the defensive side of this 2026 recruiting class. Earlier this week, the Florida Gators added CJ Hester to their recruiting class, or yesterday, they added CJ Hester to their recruiting class. And the day before, on Wednesday, they added Kendall Gervil to the defensive line class. Okay? And similar to how we looked at this on the offensive side of the ball, we're going to look at this the defensive side of the ball as well. You've got, I'm going to say 2 defensive line commits. I know yesterday we talked about Jarayla McCoy because he's listed as a defensive lineman, but we'll talk about him in a second. So right now, Florida's got 2 actual defensive line commits, right? It's Kendall Gervil and it's JJ Perez, Jameer Perez. And I, like many other people, do not expect JJ Perez to be in this class. I, like many other people, expect him to today either announce his decommitment from Florida or announce his flip outright to Ohio State. But either way, myself and many other people view him as he's going to Ohio State. And this is a thing that we spoke about again. I forgot who it was that even asked the question in the comments last week or 2 weeks ago, but we spoke about JJ Perez, and they went, all right, well, when's the last time Florida got an offensive lineman out of Ohio? Or last time Florida got a player out of Ohio? And according to 24/7, the last time that happened was 2002. That was a long time ago, right? I was like, what, 6, 7, depending on when. It was a long time ago. And so for Florida, like, it's tough to get a guy from Ohio to come to Florida, right? And we spoke about this briefly yesterday on the live show, where when you're talking about a kid from, again, we'll say Ohio, but really I think it branches out a bit more in the Midwest. But when we're saying a kid from Ohio, it's tough to get a kid to leave Ohio and come to Florida, right? Because if a kid is good enough to come play at Florida, he's good enough to come play at Ohio State, right? So if he's an Ohio State, if he's from Ohio and he's got a choice between, hey, should I go play for Florida, which is far away from my family, not my home state, all that, or I could play for my home state Buckeyes. I don't want to travel that far to play high-level Power 4 football. A lot of kids are going to choose to stay home, and especially if you're a kid from Ohio, you're probably a Buckeyes fan. And let's say Ohio State's not recruiting them, or they're not interested in Ohio State for whatever reason, right? It's still tough to get a kid out of that little pocket of America. Like, it's tough to get the kids out of that little pocket, because in that little pocket, you've got to the west, you've got Michigan, right? If we're talking about in Ohio, and to the west, you got Michigan. Okay, you got Michigan right there with Michigan and Michigan State. To the direct east, you've got Pennsylvania, which is Penn State, which is Pitt as well, which at times is near the top of the ACC. So you've got east and west. North is Canada, and Michigan, like, kind of, because it's like that. So it's diagonal a bit. So we'll say, North Shore, also Michigan. But then right below you in that the shape of Ohio, that little border on the bottom, and to the west, you're going to have Indiana. You've got Illinois not far off. You've got Iowa's right there. Nebraska's not that far. And even if you so to get a kid out of there, not easy. You want to get a kid to Florida, you got to essentially get them past that Midwest, right? And it's not easy to get a kid out of there. Again, since 2002, and the state of Ohio produces good athletes at a high school. I think people overlook Ohio and Pennsylvania football. Like, they play for real out there. They do. So it's tough to get a kid. So you're probably going to lose JJ Perez today. He said there's a big announcement Friday, expecting it to be that. And so you've got Kendall Gerville essentially as your only defensive line commit in the class. You've got Jarayla McCoy, but more of an edge is the expectation. And look, he's 6'6", 245 is what he's listed as. That's an edge size. It is. That's on the edge. That's a big dude. But edge rusher. So you got an edge rusher. One D-lineman, one edge rusher. You need more bodies up there, right? Like, again, we're talking about building out a roster. You got, 4 guys on the defensive front? Minimum. But really, each team wants multiple interior defensive linemen that can contribute, multiple edge rushers that can contribute. But you want to get at least minimum, I'll say minimum 5 defensive line players, defensive front players. If you want to go 3 edge, 2 interior, 2 3 techs, 2 edge, and a nose, like whatever it is. I want to say 5 trench players on the defensive side. Okay. Behind them, you want 2 to 3 linebackers. Okay. And right now, Florida has none committed. However, Malik Morris is announcing his commitment today out of Lakeland, and the expectation, going to be a Gator. My expectation, at least. So the expectation is Malik Morris is going to be a Gator. Great. You've got DQ Forkba out of IMG. Florida is reportedly leading for him as well. Isaiah Williams, former Florida Gators commit, now committed to Ole Miss. A lot of people think that he might flip back to Florida. You can take all three. And honestly, if you have the opportunity to take all three, I think Florida should take all three. I think that there's enough talent, athleticism, and upside in that trio to take all three and justifiably do it. Corner. We know Florida intends on taking two. They got CJ Brona and CJ Hester committed right now. I still firmly believe that they're going to take a third guy late in the cycle, whether that's a full-time corner, a guy that's going to cross-train in multiple spots. I think that they're going to go for their athletic DB that they like to take late in the cycle again. It's what they do pretty often. Safety. Caden Hall is the only safety commit right now. Florida's made traction or made progress with other targets, but right now Caden Hall's the only commit. Not super concerned about it. I feel like the state of Florida generally, DB's coming out, right? Just a little bit. Just they produce a little bit of DB pool, I guess we'll call it there. Just a smidge, right? That's it. Just a couple guys. That's it. Just, maybe one or two DBs work out in the state of Florida every year. Immensely talented athletes, of course, in the whole state. But also just in the Southeast, you're not too far from Texas. You're not too far from Georgia to go get guys. You got to battle for them, but there's DBs in abundance in the Southeast. Alabama has a ton of talent now. Like, Florida's got options in the secondary. I'm not super concerned with it. I want you to add the talent earlier rather than later, but ton of talent there. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back hopefully later on today to talk about Malik Morris, who will hopefully be committing to the Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with New York Giants on SI. Be safe out there. Don't be a dummy out there. Just want to say that. Have a happy 4th, and I will see all of you next time.